staple, always has been. But actually, oysters in North Carolina are about 5% of what they were in 1900. Pretty much any other species, it'd be an endangered species right now. So I was looking around for different things to possibly do when I retire, and noticed that in Virginia, Maryland, a lot of the other northeastern states, they have a really robust oyster mariculture program. Give you an example, last year they put out their report that they did about $45 million worth of shellfish farm gate value last year. North Carolina, maybe about 100,000, maybe a few 100,000. And I'm looking around, looking at all our water resources. I'm from Cedar Island, in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we've got plenty of water around there, Pamlico Sound. Wondering why we weren't doing it. Could it be done here? So about 6 years ago, my wife and I formed this company and started raising oysters in floating cages, which is something totally new for North Carolina. And if you look at the oysters, they're all singles, pretty much uniform in shape and size. We mainly grow them for the half-shell market, also for restaurants that want to do them as appetizers and things like that. For the most part, North Carolina you see is clusters. They're all wild caught. They've been on the bottom all their life. Ours, we raise them in floating cages. We have poles that are about 300 feet apart. A line goes between them. Our cages float right on the surface. We buy seed from an oyster hatchery when they're about 2 millimeters in size, which is very small, and put them in really fine mesh bags, grow them up to the next size, which is about 3/8 of an inch. Put them in the next size cage up till they're about 3/4 of an inch in diameter to 1 inch, and then we do a final grow out. But when you put an oyster up in the top meter of the water column, you put it in the highest overall water temperature, highest overall dissolved oxygen, and highest food supply all throughout the year, so they grow really well. To give you an example, we can get oysters to market from the hatchery size of 2 millimeter to market size of about 3 inches in about 11 months. Wild oysters take about 3 years to get to the same market size. And also you're offering, as I was saying, a product that North Carolina really hasn't had before. We've always been a bushel market. It's always been for the oyster roast or shucking, but really nothing for the half shell. We've always imported them from other states to rely on this market. And right now we're importing about 75% of the oysters eaten in North Carolina. So when you go to different restaurants and places, be sure to ask where your oysters are coming from, because there's a good chance they're not coming from North Carolina. So ask for and demand North Carolina product, because we have the capabilities. We just need more people to be aware of the issue that the state really isn't promoting this. This could be and is probably the greenest industry that North Carolina would ever have. We have an organism that we would put in the water ourselves, wouldn't cost the taxpayers any money. That organism filters the water, provides shelter for other organisms when they're in the juvenile stage, including a lot of commercially viable ones. And so we provide an artificial habitat just like a natural oyster reef would. But then when we harvest our oysters, we're providing socioeconomic benefits for that area also. So the state's actually benefiting environmentally and economically by this industry. And to give you an example, back in the mid-2000s, there was a study done, and Virginia has a program where they let individuals have these floating cages off their dock. Usually people have less than 10 of these floating cages. That year, Virginia produced more oysters just in their little underdock program with these people just doing it as a hobby than North Carolina produced totally within the whole state. I mean, we are about 20 years behind everybody else in this. And just the environmental benefits, if nothing else, should be a main driving force for a state. But I'm not sure if it's really ignorance on the part of the legislators, or they just ignore it because we're such a small group. Right now there's only about 8 of us in the whole state that are doing it like this. We have about 250 or so actual oyster leases in the state, but most of those are traditional leases. They're on the bottom. People put oyster shell, clam shells, etc. on the bottom, wait for wild oysters to come and set, and then they'll go harvest those. That's a hit or miss proposition at best, really not using the area to its full potential. We'll harvest about 300 to 400 bushels off of an acre the way we do it. And the other way, traditional, you may harvest 10 to 20. And so it's just apples and oranges in what we do compared to what has traditionally been done. But the resources are there. We've got people that are interested. We just don't have support from the state. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here and try to get the word out also, that if talk to anybody you know about this, because as I was told today, you never know who may be listening and who can help you. But definitely, like other seafoods, ask where your oysters are coming from. Make sure they're a North Carolina product, because every batch of oysters that's sold has a tag, and you have the legal right to ask for that tag and see where those oysters came from. So just because you can see the water from the restaurant doesn't mean that's where your seafood's coming from. But if you have any questions, I'll be back by the grills helping with the oysters. I've got some cards back there, but thank you for your time and thank you for showing up.